Yes,
We are all of us. Yeah.
we are ready. Thank
Okay.
you.
So I'll just speak now, is my
Yes.
question. We're starting. All right. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to attempt and try to put into some words what I'm going to share with a lot of you. There's an energy that's been happening. Oh, how's the internet? Is it okay? We just said
Yeah.
it was
Yes.
unstable. I'm just checking in. Okay. There's an energy that's happening around the world right now, and it's opening things up very fast, and there's a lot of curiosity and a lot of interest as to what it could be. I've been living with this energy for quite a while now, and I was there in one of the places where this was starting. And so I come to you now with a lot of insight and experiences as to, like, people want to know, like, what is it? Why is it happening? And then how does it happen? I would love for this to be easy, but this energy, because it's big, it's not a simple or small explanation. So we want to take it slow. We want to take our time to look at these questions, like what, why, and how. I'm gonna jump to a screen sharing just to work on an outline that I used for some presentations in the last day or two. So as I said, okay, this could be a focal point. We could ask this together and it could just be the beginning of a really big set of answers to why and how. I'm going to be jumping over parts of this presentation. I think we would just go straight into the core of things. There's something about the body, for one. The body knows something that the mind is catching up with. So one of the things we need to do right now is we need to redefine some basic things that we think we know. To open the mind is to wonder, to be in awe. It's almost like being a child. And this is how I discovered this energy. I asked really basic questions. What if we didn't actually understand food or sleep or the body or the mind or culture? What are we missing out on? So when I went in a spiritual pilgrimage, it's almost like I broke a lot of the rules that are normal, things that explain that we are just this, and we're not made of energy, and we're supposed to consume so much, and we're supposed to work really, really hard, almost kill ourselves without any meaning. So my discovery, and people have listened to this because the energy had spread across the world. There's something about like this that we don't know exactly. There's something about the body. It's not just the body. It's more like, what does it embody? How are you fitting in infinity into this thing? So we want to listen to this, and we want to understand what exactly is changing. One of the key things about this body is it has something to do with time. Time is not just this thing. Time is outside of us. It influences us, but in many ways, time is also inside. When you change certain conditions in relation to yourself or the world around you, time changes, doesn't it? Like you drink a beverage. It could be beer, wine, it could be coffee, it could be ayahuasca. Time wouldn't stay the same. Time would change. So much of our awareness and our consciousness seems to be about time. And when you change these conditions, you alter time. So for those in South America, we think about like Mayan time, like circular time. Time is not a linear thing. Time goes more in a circle, and we can go into these modes where we spread out the awareness of time into many moments that are happening all at once, not just one at a time. It's almost like this is what we're changing. The science to hold this is called time perception. How are we perceiving time? Is it ancient time? Is it alien time? So what we're realizing is we can actually manipulate time. We could shift time, and so much of healing and transformation is about that. So when we think about people who are suffering, people who want to work on themselves, so much of the problem seems to be about the lack of time. So it's like so much of our deep fear is about this idea that I will die and I don't know what's going to happen. So I don't have enough time. So this is one of the things that we grant to people. The Zeitgeber, that's the German word. This is you. You are a giver of time. And somehow time, in a way, is also space. When you go into the spiritual journey, time isn't linear anymore. It becomes almost like a space that you can explore. And it's up to you where you want to go. Do you go to ancient China? Do you go to Mars? Do you go to where in space? Do you go back to Africa? Somehow we're remembering like all of this, and a lot of this isn't outside of us. It's actually inside. And the rhythm, it's about the rhythm. It's about the vibration. When you change the vibration of the thing, you will alter time perception. And then your experience will be totally different. That could be seemingly so simple. You could be talking to your boss at work, your mother, your neighbor, your doctor, and you can alter almost any experience by shifting the vibration of time. Are you just here now, remembering just yesterday and anticipating tomorrow, or does that have the ability to stretch out? So in the inner dance experience is the beginning, which for me was 16 years ago, before it spread out across so many parts of the world. Even in the beginning, a lot of people were expressing these experience of going back to time. People would go back into the womb, for example. They go back into the earth. They say, I went back to the earth. And I don't understand how or why, but I feel like I'm going back to the earth. The whole memory of the earth, the origins, the birth, the original earth, which isn't just history. It's all a vibration, and it's all happening at the same time. So you can actually go to any of these parts just by vibrating into it. So we want to understand how that possibly could work. Skip these. Sorry. Who are we? Why do we say what we say? Why do we do what we do? Why do we think the thoughts that we think? In a way, we want to think that we're creative beings, right? I am creating my own life. I am the master of my reality, but this is easy to say. It's easy to say, but we are actually very reactive beings. It's almost the same word, just change the placement of one letter, and you have create and you have react. We want to think that we're creative beings, but there's something about our behavior or language in our thoughts that's responding to responses that responded to old responses that just kept reacting and reacting and reacting. So a lot of the spiritual work that we're doing, the powerful ones, are in fact simply there to help us respond in a different way. That in a way is what it means to be responsible. So that so much of our depressions and our sicknesses is based upon our inability to respond with courage, with wisdom, with trust, and with intuition. So because we have been conditioned, so much of the response ability of the brain usually is motivated by just two mechanisms. I may not be speaking about you, but in large part, so much of human society is acting out from the stress response mechanism and the rewards system. It's either to avoid pain or to seek for pleasure. A lot of transformation actually happens when we stop avoiding what we're afraid of, and when and the rewards system is just basically addiction. It's like getting the high always from like the chocolate bar or the opening the refrigerator or doing the things that used to make us happy but aren't always serving us anymore. So even spirituality can become like an addiction when we are using it only to seek pleasure. Sometimes when you're not seeking it, that's when real joy comes. It's a much, much deeper pleasure. So the stress response system is a very specific mechanism in the body. It's called fight or flight. And 1, 2, 3. These are the things that I would take note of were we to study what is the spiritual embodiment that holds memory together. Something happens to your heartbeat. We'll keep going back to this. When you're afraid, something happens to your heartbeat, something happens to your breath, and something happens to your brain waves. And that almost tells you that you don't actually have control. Because when you walk into a room and you go into an emotion or you go into a judgment, you've lost control. You've lost control. There's something very automatic about the body. And it's not just a physical thing. It's actually something very spiritual about this. If you know how to read it well, it has to do with ancient memory. So a lot of fear actually isn't personal. It's coming from a lineage of not just your culture, not just your family or society. It's coming from all living beings that have ever experienced pain and near death and war and hunger. So the reward system is something we would be studying for a long time. And when you are at ease, something happens once again to the heart, to the breath, and to brain waves. These are unlikely topics to bring up. Like, what is it about these three? Brain, breath, and blood are, in fact, interesting chemistries of the body and of spirit. In a way, there's a musicality within that. Think of the heart. You're always spending time with the heart. If you stopped, then you wouldn't be here anymore. The heart holds what's called a tempo. Most people would ascribe that to what's called rhythm. You have a drummer. You have like an African drummer inside you. You don't need a djembe. You don't need a snare drum. You have a drum, and that drum holds time. It could either be fast time or slow time, and it determines a lot of your moods. A lot of your heightened awareness is in fact to do with your heart. The heart holds a lot of memory, and the heart makes decisions whether to run away or to slow down. It almost tells us that this is the real brain, because what happens to your heart will influence your brain. The brain is unbelievably complex. You're talking about 50 billion neurons. How do you begin to manage that? What we're learning from the spiritual experience is the manager is actually the heart, that which loves, that which feels, makes decisions as to why we think the way we think, why we act the way we act. So the heart, the wait, let's go into that. There's music in the body. Music has always been there. We would not have arrived at language or thought without music. Music holds time and space. Music was one of the frameworks, one of the foundations, the scaffolds upon which thinking would occur. So we go back to music, and when I say music, what I'm actually talking about is vibration. And because we're realizing this, a lot of music for us is more vibration more than music. So music holds tempo, temporality, and tonality. It holds rhythm, harmony, and melody. And if you want to hold a room, you could use your hands, you could use your touch, you could use your language, you could use your words, you could use images, you could light an incense, you could rub essential oils there. But music seems to be the most pervasive, most universal language that is able to make a whole room become one. Sound is our ancestor, our deepest, oldest ancestor in a way. Sound before it became image, it began with vibration. So we want to go back to source. We actually need to understand something about sound. So we don't want to have to leave the presence of what we know too much into complexity. Just understanding certain things about the body would allow you to understand what a lot of these mean. So back to this, autonomy is then another important topic. Autonomy talks about the autonomous. That is an English word that describes something that's thinking on its own, something that's moving on its own. You don't have to control it. Something is in control. And the interesting thing is the more you let go of control, there's absolute control. It's paradoxical. The moment you let go of control, there's absolute control. So how do you get to know that? Because the most spiritual system in the body is the nervous system, that which manages light, electricity, magnetism in your system, not blood, not just air, not just chemicals. It's light. The nervous system, from the brain through the spine, the neural pathways. This is spiritual, and it's autonomous. You don't need to tell it what to do. It can hold so much complexity, however much you understand or don't understand. So there are two parts of the nervous system. There's the central and the peripheral. And in the peripheral, here's where those in spiritual practice can make a delineation. The somatic nervous system is still a voluntary system. It's the part of your brain through the spine and into the pathways that you can control. You can control your muscles. You can control your tissue. You can control your breath to a limited amount. We're interested in that. That's where things like yoga, some of breath work. That's where there are masculine elements of spirituality that require discipline, that require will, and require voluntary autonomy. So when you move over to what's called the autonomic nervous system, this then is the part of the nervous system that you don't have control over. That's what is in control. You cannot control your heartbeat. You can't. You cannot control your breath. You can't. Not for an extended period. And if you try to do that, that's all you'd be doing, controlling your breath. You can't control your digestive organs. But that still brings us back to the fact that something is in control. So the question is what is that? And that is your past, that's your history. So when you think of trauma, when you were exposed to a lot of pain and modes of suffering, there would be trigger mechanisms inside you that would affect the autonomic nervous system. So for example, in the sympathetic nervous system, when the heart, when something reactive happens, and it's not just when problems are there, excitement is also part of the sympathetic nervous system. When the heartbeat goes faster and the breath goes shallow and the brain waves spike, that's something we would be interested in. That's the upper effect, when your body stimulates either because it's in danger or because it's in wanting, like motivation, I need to wake up, I need to focus. This is a system that we know really well. I'll tell you why we're talking about this in a little while. The parasympathetic nervous system is the opposite. It's when you're able to slow down, when trust happens. That's the moment when there's an expansion. What has been contracted, what has been made small can suddenly become bigger. So the reason why we're talking about this is the spiritual experience, as we're finding out, is actually a co-activation of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Looking at these four bubbles, the dream state, the Kundalini awakening or spiritual awakening, when people go into psychedelics and when people go into the experience of death, all of these events are actually a co-activation of fighting or wanting to run away, which is fear, and then trust, love. So there are different models to look at that would be interesting. They're varied, but they're all similar. It seems like we need to hold a vibration that's very, very slow, that allows the highest and fastest vibrations to arise. One of the first examples of that is the REM state. So when we talk about music, the brain has this circadian music where the vibration goes up and down. This is a simplified version. When you're awake and then it goes down and it goes up again, it goes down again, it goes up again. We're not consistent. We're not like a line. It's almost like the energy is constantly trying to find a high balance, and it needs to borrow something from super low and super fast in order to complete us. Because normally when we're awake, we're supposed to be awake. You go to work, you take care of the kids, you think about money, you do the laundry, you go to the bank, and you can't really just drop in. Let's say when you're in the bank, you can't just close your eyes and om to the universe, you know. There's a wave, and this is something you know, because every night you go into maybe 5 or 6, maybe even more or less cycles of going into the dream. And the only reason why you actually go into the dream is to balance the lowest and the highest. Let's say the baby and the wise old woman that need to talk to each other. Both of those are vibrations. And when you learn how to co-activate those two, you can bring people into wakeful dream state. Now, this is interesting. I'm still putting up the brain there, but I'm going to open up why this is a spiritual awakening thing. For those who are undergoing activation, you know what this looks like. Now look at that picture and look at the thing that's bending like a stick. It's becoming like a circularity or a snake. It's the spine. Let's look back at the spine. There are these two parts, right? The parasympathetic is the thing that opens when you trust, when you're resting. Okay, I can relax. No one's gonna hurt me now. I can rest. And then the sympathetic is like, okay, I need to fight. Look at the extensions leaving the cranium, which is the top of the spine, near the brainstem, and then the sacrum. The relax, the rest, the digest, and the trust process is at the top and at the bottom. And then the fear is in the middle. So then when you look at this, that is what it means to co-activate the sympathetic and parasympathetic. This is an interesting thing because it's actually quite rare for people to experience both fear and trust at the same time. When you're supposed to be busy, you be busy. If you're supposed to relax, go on a vacation, go to Spain, go to the Bahamas, go to Palawan, have a massage, sit in the beach, drink your wine. We don't know how to go back and forth, and only now slowly are we going into a co-activation of both of these. Psychedelics is another interesting thing. If you can't read the text, because I think I got a blurry picture, on the left is stimulants, the green circle. The right is depressants. So there's certain things that you can drink or eat or inject, or it could be a sound, something that influences you to either, it's the upper, that's a stimulant. The downer is the depressant. That could be sleeping pills, that could be alcohol. So inner dance happens where? The yellow, the one at the bottom, that's called the hallucinogens. That's a third kind of drug. The fourth is at the top. It's called an antipsychotic. The red and the yellow balances the up and the down. It's just that one would stabilize, one would, make catharsis out of. One would explode, and then one would slow down. So these four are important. One isn't better than the other. There are times when we need to go up. There are times when we need to go down. Now, more and more, there are now times where up and down are happening at the same time. Think about these. All of these three that we've spoken about so far are alterations in time, right? In the dream, does time look the same? No. Sometimes people sleep for a really short amount of time, but the dream is big. It sounds like, oh, so much happened. In the spiritual awakening as well, when people go through that Kundalini rising thing, an hour isn't an hour. Like how many times have people spoken in the journey? Wow, I saw my whole life in like an hour. Psychedelics is obvious, 3 hours is not 3 hours. But lastly, death. Death is interesting. When people are about to die, that's really when the sympathetic fight or flight fear response. I don't want to die. Oh my God, I'm about to die. The heart starts to pulsate like crazy. You send out all of these chemicals, these hormone neurotransmitters, white blood cells, in order to prevent your death. Your brain spikes. It's like all these intense commands from the endocrine system. Okay, don't die. So the question here that makes this interesting is, in terms of time perception, when some people have undergone, not some, but a lot of people have undergone the near-death experience, there's a common expression that is very much like the first three. It's like the ultimate expansion in time perception. They would share, those who died and came back, I saw my whole life flash before my very eyes in like a second. How could you do that? Like you had to live through like the whole thing. Why, how, like a second? The people who experience that are the ones who initially the heart is palpitating. I'm super duper scared. I don't want to die. And then you take a breath. It's like, okay, I give up. I'm tired anyway. Life sucks anyway. I let go. And in that surrender, the co-activation of fear and trust just takes them there into this space where no time exists, So it's actually not that complicated in many ways of looking at this. Let's go back to this. This could be like a core element we can bring into dialogue. Brain, breath, and blood. Really interesting. You can't read it. I really need a better picture for this. You're changing the heart. You're altering the heart. Just by asking people to lay down, the heartbeat is already shifting. When you know the eyes see something it likes or doesn't like, the heart reacts. And there are two ways the heart changes. One is called the heart rate. It's measured in what's called beats per minute. So if you're stressed, go up to maybe 100 or 90. It slows down to maybe 50, 40. And when you look at common music, they actually average in the same. The average music goes into where our heartbeats normally rest when we're in a normal state. So you will touch people's hearts. It's literal. No matter what work you do, you're going to alter people's hearts. The other measurement for the heart in terms of cardiac output is called stroke volume. So it's about like how much blood is going to be passing through the arteries and veins. So when you're constricted, that's going to be more limited. When that expands, the veins and the arteries actually matter when you're going through an experience. So just bringing this up as this this understanding that you're changing time. There's a timekeeper. It's called a pacemaker, and don't take it for granted. It gives you life and it determines your consciousness. Breath is the same. The measurement is called rate and depth. So when you use music, when you use different parameters, even the way you touch bodies, you can either increase breath rate or decrease breath rate. It's like, okay, trust me, trust the space, open the space, and then the breath would go deeper. And then it might go faster actually with the more it trusts in respect to the heartbeat. And then it slows down again. So depth is about the deepness of the breath. Even when I'm talking about it now, you're probably experiencing your breath. You can either breathe deep, you can either take in a lot more energy from the universe, more prana, more chi, more life force, and then you let go. So much of your mindset is actually determined by this. So on terms of music, spiritual music, what's interesting is the way you measure music is in terms of speed. It's actually by BPM. It's the same way we measure the heartbeat. And in terms of the effects in that the DJs use, they use rate and breath. I want to mention that there are these linkages in us, so that for example, the part of the brain that operates and regulates the dream state is in fact the same part of your body that regulates the respiratory system. So when you start noticing some of these changes happening in people's bodies, the alteration in the states of consciousness is it's collaborative, it's coordinated. Changes in the breath also brings about these. At the bottom would be the slower, it had to be delta, and then as it goes up, theta, alpha, beta, gamma. Don't get lost with the terms. We're just looking at the deepest perception all the way to most hyper aware reality. So where does inner dance, where does the trance, where does the spiritual awakening, where does change happen? Here's where we really can be graphic in the co-activation of the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic. When you hold the bottom and the high, that's when it happens. Why? Okay, when your eyes are open, when you're awake, when you're doing your work, so much of problem solving and alertness is happening in beta state. That's when you had 2 cups of coffee. That's when you have a deadline. That's when you have to do a marketing presentation. Um, it's hard to raise the vibration from a beta frequency to go into from beta to gamma, to go beyond, let's say, 30 to 40 hertz. It's hard to make it go higher if you don't borrow something from the slow. So if you've been listening, if you've been exposed to a lot of the music or kinds of sounds that facilitators have been using, you would notice through the explanations of these that there's a kind of mixture, there's a kind of cocktail, there's a kind of hodgepodge where there's like a pot, for example, and to create a good soup, you need to throw in some garlic and then some onions and some carrots and some tomatoes and some other spices. It's almost like the brain knows how this works, and the more you add to these, a transcendence of fear comes about, and that can only happen when there's allowance, there's permission, there's so the primary thing that really manages this is that again? Sorry, I've got my side notes here. It's here in the sleep cycles. The body has a way of letting go of the things that annoy and irritate and exhaust and make us afraid. There's a certain stage in the sleep cycle that does that. So maybe I would let me go to my let me stop sharing, and then I need to move to another app. Okay, sorry. I don't see it. Just a moment. Yeah, it should be there. Share screen. And then, oh, okay, it's just here. Yeah. Here. Okay, so let's describe the journey. This is the bread and butter. This is the meat and potatoes of inner dance and the journey. Wait, let me just adjust certain things in the screen. You won't see it, but there's like the Zoom thing blocking. Let me adjust the size. Okay, so this is a sort of like a grid, and there could be different levels, the highest and the lowest. So we could signify that as sorry, the thing's still blocking my pen. That could be signified as maybe delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma, like super slow, and then it goes faster and faster. So notice this one especially. The wavelengths might be more, but gamma as a frequency, the highest, is actually the waves are smaller compared to the troughs and peaks of the beta wave. Yeah. So what you're going to try to do, understanding that a lot of problem solving, over planning, overthinking happens here. So much of our negativity is happening over there. You want to counteract that. So much of healing would happen here in gamma. A lot of people say it would happen here in theta, but when theta is happening, it actually means that you're channeling gamma. When you're able to hold the slow, you can experience like super duper fast. So what you want to do is to find a way to create the mix. So one technique that we found out on how to do this is, let's change the color to make things Just interesting. Okay, so if you're coming from here, you need to find a way to make the energy go down, right? To relax, to let go more into the deep meditation space that's called delta before things go up. So to allow it to go down, when you ask people for one to just lay down and then close their eyes, they're cute. I'm not an artist, so forgive me for when you go horizontal and when you lay down, something starts to happen here. Something could start happening here, and then in the breath, already the changes are there because you are almost pretending to the body that okay, you're going into the sleep. You're going into the sleep stages. So when you know how to position the body, that's called proprioception. If you know how to bring relaxation and open the space, that is naturally going to happen. And then there will be a release of chemicals that are the downers. That could be like acetylcholine, serotonin, even oxytocin if you get them to cry. So as it goes down, so initially how you make it go down is to borrow some vibrations from here. So that's why a lot of healing music or journey music starts here. So when you design a playlist, you start here at the bottom before you go up. Can you see the trick or the paradox? And as you do that, you're able to take them more. Oh, sorry, more. Wait, I pressed this button on my pen. The more you're able to take them into a full wave. So a journey actually looks a little bit like this. And what I'm drawing for you now, there's a name for that. These are the sleep stages. And the sleep stages have different stages. N1, N2, N2, N3, N4. And then what this is called, this entire range, this is called the REM stage, which is actually just the dream space. So can you see how simple it is? Your goal is actually to teach people how to dream again. So this is what Inner Dance has offered to the world, like somehow that it is in fact possible to co-activate fear and trust, which is really just more like delta theta, gamma, high oscillating frequencies, like the super slow and super fast. Because the only time we are able to trust in getting there is when we're at our safest, which is at night when no one is going to, the lions aren't going to eat us, the dinosaurs aren't going to step on us. So it's almost like there's this deep memory. The sleep stages and the circadian rhythms holds the ancient patterns that allowed us to organize ourselves in space and time, like in the world. And when you know how to use that, you're not able to just mimic the rhythms. You're actually able to change the rhythms and the vibrations of the human that's holding as well the vibrations of the planet. So in fact, the circadian rhythms largely is the thing that helps us to manage night and day, light and dark, so we can make our way from each polarity. What you're doing as a spiritual person, a healer, or as an artist is to create the space for both. And sound becomes it's called an entrainment device. There's a lot of talk in science about brainwave entrainment. Let me go back to the shared screen. Where is that? Oh no, I can't. Maybe I Oh, wait. Okay, I'll just go into this. I think you can see this anyway. And my presenter notes of that. No, not this. No, but maybe this would do. No, I would like to find it. It's I think maybe here. Entrainment, yeah. Entrainment. Entrainment is what we're doing. Nature versus nurture. One of the biggest debates in the sciences, including some of the philosophies, is are you creating your life, or are you subject to the external world? Are you a slave to nature, or are you the grand creator? Obviously, it's going to be both, but in terms of entrainment, you can't escape it. It's like maybe you could have this thought experiment that you could live in a sensory deprived chamber where you don't see any light, and what would you look like? You do need to manage yourself in the world so that when other people are awake, you need to be busy, and when other people are resting, that's the time when you can slow down as well. But I think what is really unique to what we're discovering now is entrainment. Most of entrainment science talks about the entrainment of the brain. There are these binaural beat technologies, isochronic tones, but what hasn't really been talked about is the entrainment of the heart and the entrainment of the breath, and especially how these three kind of come together. This is an avenue that needs to be looked at, because the patterns have been really consistent. No matter where you look at the part of the world where an awakening is happening, when you see the manifestations of the body moving in certain ways, they all look the same. It doesn't matter if it's in Sydney or Krakow or Cape Town or Manila or in Mexico City. We all have the same bodies. We all have the same programming. We all have the same fears. We all have the same excitements and aspirations and surrenders. There's a universality that makes us like a one being. So we can offer this, and I offer just a scientific language, because for me, the intuitive and energetic part is actually quite simple. I've seen children do it. The thing people really need is more of what I need permission. Am I okay to do this? Am I good enough? Am I powerful enough? When you're in a loving environment, and Sigrid and Sandra are there to help hold that space for you, that is something that will come from love, and that doesn't really need structure. So something we're needing right now is a possible bridging of the gap between science and spirit. And as I understand, a lot of you are not just living in ashrams and eco-village communities. A lot of you are in the world. I myself am very, very interested in how energy can come into hospitals, into schools, into companies, into governments, into so what would be a contextualization? What would be a way to share this situationally and contextually? You can't just go there and say, oh, we're going to talk about the Divine Mother, we're going to Kundalinify the whole space. You can't talk to the principal about that. They will look it up, and that's an appropriation of an ancient Sanskrit terminology that's undergoing westernization. We need not just to talk about power and heightened states. We need to talk about the applications of how does this help the body regenerate? How does this lead especially to brilliance and genius? How does this activate multiple intelligences? One of the things I would really love to bring forward to the world when you look at, let's say, the cognitive sciences. Let me see if I have a something on screen. I think maybe it's in the Turkey. Oh, it's here. Yeah. So I can do a shared screen. Where is that? Share screen. Yeah. Here, this one. Oh, the words went away. Okay, wait, a bit smaller. This is beautiful for me. It's so elegant how the study of the mind, the study of spirit, the study of the brain, of language, of information networks, of culture and learning, a lot of it is coming together so cohesively that a lot of these departments in university are realizing I cannot understand my specialization without understanding the other things. So I think being represented within the awakening process, it has something to do with origins, going back to the beginnings of like the beginnings of the mind, the beginnings of like one of the most common sharings is going back to the womb. People keep talking about it. They've been talking about it for a long time. I went back to the womb. So what if the womb wasn't just a place in the mother's belly? It seems to be an ocean of meaning upon which you are about to create a universe. Time and space certainly does not look the same in the womb. So when you start to experience yourself, or when you're holding space, when you start to notice certain things happening in people's minds, let me give you the symptoms of a Kundalini rising or an inner dance process. A lot of people, their minds start to empty. Some of the memory goes away, although there's like a sharpness there. It becomes sometimes hard to put certain things into words. It becomes hard to describe certain things. There are times when people even lose their talk altogether, and then some people experience this light language thing. I've seen that for God knows how long. Do this work, that will come about. It has something to do with the way many different infinite elements start to uncombine and recombine. It's part of the unlearning process. The explanation for that has something to do with when you spread so much electricity throughout the hemispheres of the brain, you wipe out the old patterns of personality, of trauma, of fear. That's maybe the quintessence of what we're doing. A lot of people are looking for a fresh start. I'm tired. I want to start again. You know, it's like in a game over, and then I can restart. We don't really have that in life. The spiritual awakening is that. So it sounds so insightful when you think this. This is manageable. A lot of science could support that premise, that proposal that we're going back into simplicity, basic goodness. We're becoming like a child again on a neurological, psychological, and linguistic level. The baby is not stupid. We think the baby isn't as smart as we are, but the baby has double the connections that any adult has, maybe even more. The baby has 100 billion neurons. An adult has 50. So when you go back to the baby, you're just going back into the diverse, the infinite. When we had to let that go, so we could go to work and we could make money and we could take care of the dogs and the kids, clean the house. It's exciting, but it also demands for clarity, because I do believe, and I've experienced this again and again, a lot of people are being misdiagnosed as having schizophrenia, psychosis, and so on and so forth. Experiences that in Asia and in Africa would not be seen as disorders. They would be seen as spiritual awakenings. They put these people on temples. But in the West, when people expand on their awareness of time and space, then it becomes a kind of problem. So when we do bring people into deep childlike states, diverse, interconnectivities in the brain, we need to also understand the reasons why these are happening, which will allow us the integrative methodologies. It's not complex at all. It has to start from the vibration. And what I've explained to you from brain, breath, and blood, this simple understanding that a lot of our psychological thoughts or belief structures are actually influenced by embodied cognition, because embodied cognition, the cognition of the body is in fact vibratory in nature. Then it doesn't matter if you're speaking to someone from Sri Lanka or Nepal or in Barcelona or in Bangalore or in you can speak the same language, and that it's not base, it's dimensionality. It tells you if you might take someone into the second or third or fourth or fifth dimension, different timescapes in each one. So when you learn how to hold certain types of music either in sequence or either in simultaneity, that could be my last screen share maybe. It's really just this grid. Everything is this grid. Everything is a relationship between time and space. Oh, let me put that there because I crossed the boundaries of my writing tablet. So time is sequential thinking, one at a time. In fact, when we invented language, where one word follows another, we landed in three-dimensional thought. So I think simply what we're experiencing now is we're going more into space. Even though we still live in time, we're expanding awareness. It's almost like it's that philosophical moment that is entitled the becoming space of time. Meaning when you were born from the universe and from the baby, when you have to land in your person, that is the becoming time of space. So when you die, you become this, but I don't think you need to die in order to become that. So the use of music and the use of certain techniques, whether it be touch or body position, is really explainable by this. When we close our eyes and then when we lay down, we bring this about more. So when people start using elements like music, for example, some techniques are still pretty much like time oriented, where people jump from song or sound to the next song, from the emotional to the spiritual, and so on and so forth. This is an art form that's been with the inner dance since 2008, and it's been appropriated by other spiritual modalities that learn from inner dance. What we realize is this: when we hold more vibrations in space, and this is called like layers, the techniques and the things that we're studying, looks like players, layers. When we hold more layers, because the brain is able to manage more interconnections from delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma, mu, high oscillating frequencies, and SMR, that's really when visions appear. That is when transformations happen. There could be a lot of energy that happens in the sequential stuff, but a lot of it is still very much time oriented. And without those layers, there's a lot of addiction, and then there's a lot of blissing out, and there's a lot of escapism, and there's a lot of pain avoidance, because it's to do with the way we're activating the neurotransmitters from fear to trust, from wait, sorry, this is too good to not share. Prezi video. It's like people just keep jumping from this one to wait, to this one, you know. It's like from stress back to reward, and then back to stress, and it becomes quite hard to synchronize a balance in the world. So the beginner facilitators who hold this Kundalini type of process, it's natural and it's organic to initially experiment with this thing with the arcing of the body, and that's the opening. That's a powerful opening. It could be necessary. I'm not going to debate with that. But over the many years that I've been holding this, something I've been interested in is the advent of the spiritual ego and spiritual bypassing and shortcutting, where the mind isn't able to slow down anymore. Everyone wants it fast. I want it now. I want it in a hurry. I want it really big, and I want it easy. We need to borrow from a lot of the dimensional disciplines that still held the slowness that a lot of us did experience when we were young. That could very well be the masculine in some ways. So where I'm speaking from in this is when you've spent some time with this energy. In the beginning, the interest would be the explosions, the deep, the experience. But later on, after people have gone through enough of that, the interest would be about stability, happiness, joy. Say, I'm good. I don't need to keep recreating experiences that I've already had. I'm integrating. I've processed things. I don't need to I don't need now to keep the word is this one. I don't need to keep activating what is just this. Why do I need to keep reactivating when in fact I can start to co-create the space? You know, so we break out of the loop, and there are what's being found out, more mature, more holistic ways to hold the energy. So for those who are new at this, don't get overwhelmed. I think it's good to have exposure to the big picture early on, so you don't fall into some of the experimental, I would even say mistakes. I don't believe in mistakes, but having to feel like, okay, something seems to be missing, something seems to be off, and there seems to be something more. Holding more of both, like in a way. And even when we don't fully understand these, just the intention will guide you to a lot of the information that you might need in order to hold a really responsible, integrative, and beautiful practice. So I think that's actually the whole thing. I think I managed to deliver that in less than an hour, what normally takes 2 hours. The gist is there. Everything's there. I want to make some space. I want to open up some space and create some time for us to look at some of the questions that you guys might have. So I'll let Sigrid and Sandra shift us into, yeah, like a dialogue. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pi. You said it's very, very easier to understand. Thank you for helping us.
And each time deepening, even if I've listened to that sometimes already, and each time I get some more deeper understanding, some connection more. So thank you very much for your generosity of sharing with all of us all these condensed findings and just being present for us. So you're holding the space with us here all the time. So now
questions.
we
Aprovechar.
will invite
People
the
to
people
ask.
here to ask questions related to the practice. We had the 3 days, but also, of course, related to what you were explaining right now. I think you opened up probably a space for questions, how it relates, and what you'd like to.
Yeah, I think let's just make sure that whatever the mic source is, that I can hear it well. So let's make sure the mic is near enough to the speaker.
Okay.
Vale, ¿quién quiere empezar? Marcela. Marcela. Marcela, acércate.
Acércate al micrófono. Can you hear us properly like this? Right. Okay. So.
Marcela.
Hi, Pi. Well, I just wanted to ask you about my experience yesterday, previous days that already happened to me, that when I'm in the Kundalini activation, my eyes goes like backwards, and they shake very rapidly. And I feel like I'm in a very rare space where I want to come back to feel my body, to be aware of my movements, but I can't. So the only way that I have come back is when somebody touch me. But what happens if I am alone? How can I come back from that kind of journey?
A really profound question, actually. So once an activation has happened, you cannot not go there when the stimulus is present. In many ways, that's good news. So what we've been working on as a community, Sandra and Sigrid included, we realized, in fact, that the deepest experiences are happening when you're alone. So you're paving the way with this, but based on what you're saying, this is going to require courage. Why is it deeper? For one, the obvious, the experiences people are sharing are amazing, and we would love for you to try that out and to hear what would happen. But number two, what this is offering is independence. There's so much thoughts around, I need a healer, I need someone to facilitate me, I need someone to hold me. There's this power dynamic, there's this master student guru disciple dynamic that is really happening across the spiritual awakening world. And when inner dance first happened inside me, I was alone, and yes, it was scary, but because I never had the chance to depend on anyone, I had to really face it. There was never any illusion or thoughts that there's something outside that's doing it for me. And that full responsibility really led to a great transformation. The dependency thing is a blockage. So your question puts us in two rooms, two spaces, and we need to shift from one to the other. So because you're consciously and courageously verbalizing this, what you're doing is you're representing a whole load of people who will be asking the same question. You will not know unless you try. So trust your subconscious. When your body will know when to snap out. Really, it will know. If you want the easy tips, turn on the lights. Open your lights, expose your eyes, your pupils, your retina to more light, and you will go back to your normal state. I don't know if you have kids, but when people start knocking in the door, you're going to go back. Walk out into the street, you'll be okay. So a lot of people would actually find you crazy that, okay, why would you want to go back when you're not ready? They would want to stay there. So enjoy. enjoy that being there, because there's so much to gain. And you know what? When this first happens to you, you will not experience a lot of this level later on. Once you stabilize, you would then be giving this to others and you will miss it. So try to harvest as much as you can. And the solitary journey is, in fact, that's the next level. Trust it, trust it. It's going to be amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Otra pregunta? Another question? Lucy.
Hello. Last station we made, I started, well, the first one I dance with hands, normal thing. But the two last we made, I was dancing with my feet. So, my question is, what are my feet to dance? I don't understand why my feet start to do like my hands.
Okay. So these two are extensions of both the brain and the heart. And the legs are an extension of the heart and the lower organs and the lower energy centers. So usually when you're working on the upper level, there's some understanding there that's going to help the lower part of you to trust more. So if it started with this,
She'll come back. Ya. ¿El sabe que se separaron? Sí. Por esto para algo va a ser. Él no se ha enterado, ¿no?
like at the same time. It's not even just the upper and the lower, the seal. It's also the left and the right. They will move from here to here and then from there to there. So try to just keep going, and then the movements will stop, and you will find that the balance is happening here, and you're just there. At that point, when you're not moving so much anymore, your mind will open, and then you would start to journey into places you've never seen before. That means you've let go of an aspect of your person, and something has grown up into the next level.
Great.
Mm.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you.
Another question?
Yes.
That's good.
Hello.
Mm.
So I wanted to ask or share, I'm right now a little bit insecure and really careful to touch someone. So I'm very aware, and I know that some people don't like it. So I want to ask if you have any recommendation or something like that. How do you handle it?
Yeah, it's a very brave question. It's also simple. It depends on your intentions and what you're anticipating. To make it more soft and gentle as like an opening point, if you're not going to lead them straight away into the explosive body movements, there are varied experiences where sometimes people just go into the dream, and that could be amazing. So that doesn't require so much of the touch-based activation. There would still be some touch there, but I think when you say there's some anxiety inside you on touching people, it's the kind of touch that would like blow them up. That would be scary for some. That would come later on. So if you're not going for that, here's a recommendation. Here's a touch. Gently hold the right arm and extend it. When you do that, it opens up the left brain. Don't do anything else, leave them. Go to the next person you feel called to. Extend the right arm. Have a whole session. Some people might cry. Some people might move. You don't care. You're open and you're present. And then wait for the time that there's a circle where people share and prepare to be surprised. So here you see, you don't actually need to be pressured. This is more independent because you're giving them a chance to awaken their own energy from within. I always like to say that this energy does not heal people. It creates the conditions where healing happens on its own. So when you're working with the avenue of sound, that wave can take you, but if you have love inside you, touching someone's heart without expectation, touching them in the head would also help them to let go of some of their thought processes. I like touching the toes, I'm very, very gentle like that. And then if there's one of you, you can touch people at the same time and just move on. You can rub essential oil in your hands. And the olfactory system is the oldest sense in the fetus. The pathways for that are very different from the other sensory relays. So when you use smell, it's very subtle, but it's very powerful and brings about these memories. Once you find these starting points, normally like a seed will grow and they'll start to talk about it to other people and they themselves go deeper so that the next time you do it, something's going to rise up and you feel more power and confidence inside you to hold. You don't even need to say touch. The process of holding people, holding the space seems a little bit more, intimate and manageable and less, I think the word is invasive. You're not invading people's space. It's really, really all about presence. I will admit to you, and this would help you a lot. I am, as a child, even up until now, I am the shyest person you would ever meet. I didn't like to be with people. I always ran away. Oh no, there's a person. I'm so scared. So when I started to do this work, my story kept coming out of the newspapers, and when my mom would read it, she'd say, "Oh my God, it says here you're touching people. How can that be?" So I'm the same as you, but when the energy takes you, it will take you there. And maybe this is a gift. You don't need to see it as a lack, because when you have this shyness, that's actually coming from an intense sensitivity. It's sometimes coming from an empathy where I can feel people, and we may have had to put up some shields, a barrier or a wall, because we're feeling them too much. So you can use still that sensitivity so that you can have this radar whether there's too much or too little, which could lead to the Goldilocks moment where it's just right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Wow.
And another question, just in case of the science language, I thought about when there is someone who's very rational, and this is a logical question as well. From the science language, do you recommend to calm down someone first who's really rational, so that there's space to calm down and you call it feel yourself first and then activate the person or try to activate?
Whether we speak to the mind or speak to the body or emotion or spirit, what is important is that people trust, which means that people feel safe. So when we talk about or think about these people who are rational, what we need to provide is called context. Context would help them situate themselves into the space. It's tricky though, because you can't just go into too much of what's called people pleasing. You also need to trigger them because they are there to look at their fears. So you almost have to be this kind of crazy person where you're there to love them and kill them. You
Okay.
have to give them tough love. You need to develop a language that's very confrontational but very gentle, so that because if you're too gentle, some of them will just fall asleep. Okay, that was nice, I feel more relaxed. For me, that's actually one of the worst compliments. I feel so relaxed right now, but I'm not a massage therapist. I'm not a vacation into Mallorca or something. I'm here. I'm here to also cut and slice. So learn to speak this dual language. Be nice, but also be very direct, very cutting. Um, but really, context is important. And when we open ourselves up to this kind of work, it's actually quite scary, because the scariest thing about this work, let me word it, is you don't know what's going to happen. It's not like a yoga where here is instruction 1 that goes into number 3 and 8. There's like a sequence. Here, anything can happen, which means that anything will happen. And the reason why something happens is it's actually very rare in this world where people are not told what to do. It's pure acceptance where anything in the space is allowed. So when you can contextualize that, when you enter the field and you've set yourself up with the intention to do this kind of work, your mind will actually alter. You will realize that there's a much deeper trance. When you hold space, it's actually a much deeper trance to hold the space, because you need to become them. If you don't become them, you can't speak to them, because you're not listening, which is really still what empathy is about. So I think that's actually one of the reasons why we do this. We lose ourselves. It's a kind of meditation, even like an orgasm. It's like you can't hold your ego. If you do this work, you will totally disappear. And for me, the definition of inner dance is the becoming of the collective consciousness.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
Grazie.
Wow.
Thank you.
Another question?
You're welcome.
Another question? Okay.
Hello there. Well, first of all, thank you again. Okay, you're mentioning a lot the polarities. So light and dark, becoming a children, and also becoming a grandpa or a grandmother. So with this journey, we are bringing people back and forward between time and space, but this will bring people or us into this state of death and rebirth. So what I'm afraid is, how can we teach them to navigate between these polarities? Because yes, we're taking them through this journey, really nice, but our role as a facilitator, how are we gonna teach them to navigate between these polarities and like settle the experiences and find the proper balance onto it?
Nice. So well spoken. What's your name again?
Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole. So I kind of implied this. If we're not just going to go into the psychological and the linguistic, energetically, you can hold these polarities in certain ways. Either a lot of facilitators, because we get addicted to the outcomes, the shouting, the screaming, the crying, and that really belongs to the first aspects of this. There's a sequentiality where people do jump between rest and arousal. So what we learned from the long experience is it's actually possible to hold them. So when we talk about polarities, they may be there, but they're happening at the same time. The category mistake that is made that leads to possible events in psychosis, spiritual ego, and addiction is when you jump from slow to fast, fast to slow, light to dark, and then dark to light in a sequence. So there are these techniques that are coming about from the use, for example, of music, where let me give you guys an example of this. I need to find my iPhone. Okay, so go to the screen, and Let me do something so that you guys would see my phone. Okay. So this is my phone, and these are my tools. These are the things that I use for my workshops. All right, so here's a tool, and Sigrid, could you tell me if there's a sound that comes up? Yes or no? Okay, good. So this is a layer, right? So you can see when I toggle them, I can change the sound. And then when I press multi and then the plus button at the top, I can shop around for many layers. All right. So let's say let me add another layer, which is a drone from India. Yeah. And then let me add another layer here. Let's say some noise thing. I'm gonna press stop, and then let me show you another tool. So that was more spacey. What I showed you, that was like spacey music, which didn't sound like music. It sounded like a lot of layers and sounds. So this is music, for example. Okay, I'm gonna stop there before you guys explode. What I'm demonstrating here is different styles in holding the space, and I want to describe certain things happening in the brain. When I jump from like the music that was like building up with the rhythm, with a lot of melody, and then when I stopped it into the violins, you would feel maybe like a sharp shift. So what happens when you jump from one vibration to another? There's the explosion happens here. Yeah, and then suddenly a lot of information that is hiding here and across the body, they start to flow across each other, and that's one way of understanding polarity. So I don't have the space right now to explain this too fully, and Sandra and Sigrid can maybe explain this more during your time together. When you know certain ways to to expand, the real polarity actually, a lot of it has to do with, okay, this is the region of the brain that is control oriented. This is the control freak. It's called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. When people see visions, it happens here. So much of integration happens here. So much of the body movements happens down here. So when our intention is really just to bring the body movements and the explosions, the integration doesn't happen here. So you need to find certain techniques to spread the energy. And what we would realize is it's actually when the body starts moving already. When the body isn't moving anymore, that's when the polarities aren't happening anymore. So there are a lot of people making the mistake of getting stuck with the movements. There's so many places in Europe right now where people think this is about making people's bodies move. And then they post it on Instagram, and then they put it on posters and flyers, and in the holding of the space, they say, if you're not moving, you're blocked. It's not true. So to use the art, to use your hands, to use your love so that you can bring them into all those stages, you just need to design a journey. Where do you want to take them? You have so many elements of bringing them either into personal egoic space, into earth space, into reliving the trauma. A lot of people use music that's really just activating the emotions. And that brings people into a loop. It actually makes some people more afraid in general. So you almost need to impersonalize things to let them go beyond their identifications. And from the way you speak, I can feel how much you've already done to take responsibility over yourself, how you process yourself, and now you're interested in how to and you know it's hard. It's not easy. It's wild out there. It's crazy out there, and to try to hold something non-distracting, and you need to work with people's expectations and anticipations, desires and drives. The question you asked should be asked again and again, and then again, and then again some more, until we get to the bottom of this. I hope this helps a little bit. It may seem a little simplistic, but there's a lot to open up ourselves to.
No, it definitely makes sense. Because also I see that our bodies are like an instrument, and when we have our energetic centers aligned, then we can create better sound or better music. And actually, at the end, life is it's a song, and like we all are the instruments who can create it. So yeah, it makes sense. If we're taking this journey, finding then this inner balance, and we can make better sounds, and all together create a better song, which is life.
Yeah. I want to point out that, I'm watching the way you're able to write things down. You're doing it because you're mapping out information. You have this ability of holding a lot of pieces within it's like a big puzzle. So all of these sounds are going to activate elements of embodied cognition that would either say big, small, high, or low, left and the right. Someone like you would have the ability to gain some understandings. Even one of the most mysterious questions is, and I'll just give this to you guys, when the body moves, does it actually mean anything? Are they just moving as they're moving, or is it speaking something? Like, what is a mudra? What is a kriya? What is a spontaneous movement? Is it a language? I'm not going to give any answers to that, but those who can hold more pieces together would start to observe, this one's calling for her mama. Oh, this one is reaching for the sky. So don't ever let go of your notebook. Hold on to that, because I think a lot of observations will be happening there.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you, Pi.
Thank you.
I'll plug my lab.
Well, you're Ingrid?
Hello, Pi, I'm Indri. but just sounds so amazing just now. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I bumped into the plug, so my internet went down for a short while. I'm back.
Can you hear us again?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm here now.
Just one moment, Pi. How much time would you have available? Just to know.
I'm good. I'm here.
I'm here.
I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Indri, and my question is around, you mentioned before that no, we are controlled by our past, by our trauma, and quite often we are more in the stress than in the sympathetic than in the parasympatheticals. And just now in the few sessions I've observed, I felt like it was going more up into the light and not so much into the trauma. And I was wondering if with this modality, I just haven't seen it, or with this modality, you don't need to, you basically by going into the light, you go into, or is there also, like if somebody comes in with a lot of trauma, will they just go up, or will they have?
Yeah. This is so good. This really substantiates why we do what we do. Let's put the definition into words. What is inner dance even? Why are we doing it? So going into the autonomic nervous system, where we realize so much of our behavior is actually reactive. A lot of people give the feedback that the more I go into this, I'm not reacting as much anymore to the bad things. I'm even not defining it as bad as I used to. So the reason why we tap into the autonomic nervous system in this way, that we're allowing people to relive the past, is so that they can react in a different way. So whether the images come or not, it's almost like they're talking to their mothers, their fathers, the people of their past, and another kind of conversation is happening. A confrontation, a mode of understanding and forgiveness is happening. And so that's definitely bringing the dense and the dark into light, so that from like an embodied space, even if it doesn't seem like there's psychological components to it, it's like we're making new decisions. It's like the body's making a decision to be braver, to be more wise, to not be so petty and repetitive. So definitely there is a breaking away from the loop. So I like what you're saying, because this gives us the opposition to the addiction theme, that it is important to watch out for some of the patterns or the dangers of this work, but at the same time we should be really appreciative that this is here because it's done so much. It's been doing something consistently. So if you're saying I'm a testimonial of this energy, which partly means that it's coming from elsewhere, but it's yours. It's like this exists inside of you. You more easily build trust in giving this to others. So I totally agree with you. I think simply we're learning to talk to the old stuff, and then it's actually still there. It's happening still. The past is not the past. They're all dimensions happening at the same time. And when you have the power to bring them up, you can heal these patterns and then take them further. If they're not just personal, if they're collective, we're healing the response mechanisms of all who came before us. We have to see it that way too, because you can't just heal yourself at this point. We need to heal the environment that contains the self. Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More question?
There's Lina from Argentina.
She came from Argentina only to.
She will ask the question in Spanish, and
Hello.
I
Okay.
try to translate as good as I can.
Okay. Hola.
Hola. Que tal vez una persona puede llegar a sentir que está activada, pero realmente no lo está. ¿Cómo poder tener esa capacidad para percibir nada más.
Desde
Si lo
fuera,
está
desde
desde fuera y conectar
Con ella.
persona.
So what Lina is asking is basically, she says, sometimes people might feel themselves as being activated and showing themselves as being activated, but in reality, they are not connected yet. So how, as a facilitator, whether to notice that, or how can you sense that, or is it just a feeling, or can you observe something? What to do in this case?
Yeah, this is so hard. Thank you. I don't even know how to respond to this. You don't have a choice. When something is happening the way it is, you just have to let it be. Because something could still happen even if the connection isn't as authentic. What we can do, because when you do this work well, there will be a lot of people, and you need to be able to hold the entire space as if there was just one space. So what you can do is to create a diversity or a whole range. One of the reasons why disconnection and shallow experiences are happening is because of repetition. When, for example, people keep using the same songs and people start to learn to get activated from the same emotional thing, the same hyperactive thing, the meditative thing, people just start to play active because they know, okay, that song is coming, so I'm going to cry. Oh, that song is coming, so I'm going to rise up and raise my kundalini. So really, actually, what creates the disconnection is ego. And a lot of the people who have childhood experiences where they didn't feel loved and they weren't empowered, they're looking for power. They want to feel the power again. They want to hold power, sometimes even over others. They want to be the healer. They want to be the teacher. So you have to watch out for that when you can see them in the room, not to feed that. So when you can hold a diversity that wouldn't just be feeding the power, you can find a way to make them go deeper. Put that in your toolbox, or I don't know what you call it, your library or your set. So, a lot of people, they don't do that because it's easier to make money by just giving power, making it about power, all about power. But the ones who are beyond some of that as the only intention, if the intention is also transformation and to really bring about change, your library will not look the same as the ones who are just very like mono, almost not diverse. But I'm not going to make this long. It's going to be hard to translate. Sigurd. Did you understand it, Mosi? Okay.
We'll translate her because she doesn't speak very well English, so we'll translate her by
Okay.
after.
Thank you. Gracias.
¿Alguna pregunta más? Come on, venga, vamos rápido, la última.
Last question.
Last question.
Hi, thank you for being patient.
It's really all good.
Thank you. My question is, my experience in a session is completely different depending on the person who is facilitating. So my question would be, how my own way of, my own energy is impacting in the person. And another second question would be, is that good? Is that I have to do something to be more neutral? I don't know what I have to do.
Okay, because you are learning to hold a space for others as well, and not just to be held. This is a good question so that you're prepared. So here's what usually happens. The way people were held also becomes the way they will hold others. The energy that they receive will be the one that they give. So I actually love it that you experience like a lot of styles, a lot of diversity. Because if you got stuck with just one healer, you will literally be, it's like being a baby, you know, and the things that influence the baby up until the age of 5 will determine who they're going to become until they're 50. So a lot of you, if we're becoming like children, a lot of the language and the concepts and the energies that you get exposed to when you're in that process will shape you. So you actually need to ask these questions in order to have authorship, so that you're not just being like a puppet or a dummy or like a toy that people are playing with. You do need to develop your own mind, not just your body and your spirit. So exposure to many is beautiful. It's very humbling. And then when you're beginning to hold space for people, all the more we need to be humble. We actually need to be small to be able to hold a space so that we can hear. So that's really my secret. My technique is, when I'm touching someone, it's not because I'm touching that person. That person is touching herself through me. And then always people tell me, how did you know? Because I'm you. I became you. So even if you don't feel that in the beginning, trust your body. The simplest things your body makes is a movement will lead you there. If you don't feel the connection yet, touch something or move your body in a certain way. Go near, and then you're not thinking about it, you will just go there. So here's a tip. When you are trusting, it doesn't actually matter what you're doing. You're always doing the right thing. But the moment you doubt and say, why am I doing this? Even if you're doing the right thing, it's going to be the wrong thing, because they will feel the energy. So when you're doing something, don't ask yourself you're doing it. The reason why you're doing it is because you're doing it. The feedbacks they will have later will tell you what they were touching through you that is themselves, that it's indescribable. It's always going to be much bigger than the moment of now. It's like all of the past and all of the future want to make their way into the present. I hope that helps.
Thank you, it helped. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Pi.
Bye. Always, it's a
Wow,
real gift to hear.
such a gift.
I think all of them and us needed this moment with you to round think a little bit to understand deeper what this process and this beautiful technique that it's growing.
And it came as we scheduled what would be a good time. It was like an intuition to say that would be a good day, because we are just in the transition of coming from this classical, let's say, playlist type of situation with energy and so on, going into this multi-layer, going into this dimensionality. And so it just came perfectly.
So we're going to finish, and then they're going to do their first inner dance collective session.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a suggestion and I will send it to our WhatsApp group as a playlist.
Okay,
And then you can play that.
Great. We'll wait for that.
Then we wait for that.
Wonderful. Okay, and tell me how it goes, huh? I will wait for it. Give me feedback. Wonderful.
Great. We'll do it. Send you a video. Love
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Pi.
Bye.
Just with the camera, just briefly, all of them.
So sweet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. See you again soon. See you in the spirit space. Bye.
Yes.
Here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Es que es una respuesta a tu pregunta. Nunca te había respondido nunca.